Turning now to Candice Bergen, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. During the course of this particular uprising, since, of course, September of last year and the brutal and savage killing of Mahsa Amini, I really wanted to hear your experiences of how parliamentarians have really been apprised of what's happening with the Ministry of Intelligence and Security in Iran, and of course how that's been targeted against Iran's main opposition, the NCRI and MEK.
Thank you, Azadeh. It's really great to be here. Wonderful to be back in Paris. Many of us were here 5 years ago, and so many things have happened in the last 5 years. And it's wonderful to be back again and to know we are this much closer to freedom in Iran and to seeing the people of Iran living the best life that they deserve. So I'm very happy to be here. An interesting question you pose, because my colleague Judy Sgro, who is a parliamentarian from Canada, Wayne Easter is also a former parliamentarian from Canada. I am now a retired member of Parliament from Canada. And although Wayne and Judy and myself are on different sides of the aisle politically, we are all in agreement of our support for freedom in Iran. And we also are in agreement of how we've been targeted ourselves with disinformation and misinformation. So I want to give you a quick example. I was honored to be part of the Women's Conference in Brussels in March. The NCRI women had organized this incredible massive rally in support of women. And when I think about how we can support women and women's rights, I believe in Canada, women are strong and free, and we have the law to support us and to protect us. I want to be standing up for women in Iran, the women who are leading the fight against the oppressors and the tyrants and the murderers. So to be able to be part of this conference and speak was a huge honor. I was very proud to be part of it. I spoke about the women of the NCRI and how strong they are, and how I described them as wise as serpents and gentle as doves, and you'll know what I mean as you meet and get to know these incredible women. But I also talked about the appeasers, and the appeasers that we see, many of us from countries that are democratic and free and rule of law. We see appeasers in our own country, in our own governments, in our own media, in our own academic institutions. So I spoke about this, and I was excited. It was a wonderful conference. I then posted a number of photos on my Instagram account. And I also posted photos of a number of women. I thought on Women's Day, on March 8th, I want to talk about the women who have been standing up for women. And I posted photos of women who had been shot in the eye with rubber bullets and have been disfigured, and they haven't been murdered, but they have been severely injured. And there was a number of photos that I posted. And what I was absolutely staggered, I was shocked at, I received so many comments from people that I had never heard of before. They did not follow me on my account. But the algorithm must have alerted the propaganda machine to start attacking me. And I was attacked, not for saying anything about the Iranian regime, not for exposing what they had been doing to women, but for being part of the conference. And that became, for me, a big red flag. What really is the agenda here? The agenda here is to discredit the opponents of the regime, to divide, to stigmatize, to cause disunity, to cause fear in me as an elected representative, to cause me to say, oh dear, am I part of a good organization or not? Well, thankfully, I know I'm supporting and part of an incredible organization that is working with so many others for freedom in Iran and democracy in the beautiful country of Iran. So I could brush it off, and I know Judy has brushed it off as well. Judy's received letters. We receive letters. We are targeted on social media. The interesting thing is how it has changed in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, I also posted photos. I didn't receive the same kind of response on social media. So this is really increasing over the last number of years, and we need to expect it to increase even more. But my next question that I had two questions that I posed to myself, and I'm going to pose to you, is why is Iran and others like Iran, China, Russia, others, so confident and they feel they can push disinformation and they're so cunning in how they do it? And I would say, and this is where I think we have to be careful, as whether we're elected representatives ourselves, whether we're part of academia, whether we're from political or government institutions, we so readily believe disinformation. And I'm going to give you 3 examples where we see our own governments divide, stigmatize, cause fear. Why? Because they're spreading disinformation. And I'm just going to throw out these 3 examples, and you ponder it, whether it's around COVID and the issues around COVID and vaccines. There was disinformation and lies spread to purposefully hurt and divide people. Issues around climate change, a very important issue. People are purposefully caused to be fearful, distrusting, and disunified around something that we should be unified around. Identity politics, who we are as human beings. We are seeing governments purposefully try to divide us and put us into categories of victim and victimizer. Why? So that they can have more control over us. So I'm saying that to say this. Let us make sure that in countries where we have democracy, where we have freedom, where we have accountability, that we all use the brain that God gave us, and that we reject lies, and we don't accept half-truths, and that we stand up and speak truth to power. Because I believe that as we do that in our own countries and in our own institutions, we will then send the message to regimes like the one in Iran that is trying to discredit, demonize, cause division, and in the end, it's all for their own gain. We will send a message to them that, no, we will not believe your lies, and we will stand up to your lies. Now, that's easier said than done, because we're all a part of it, and we are in some cases, we're wanting to get reelected. You have to ask yourself, why in Canada did we as a parliament vote to call the IRGC a terrorist organization? And the current government, although they support it, they won't do it. And none of us can, they have put forward some reasons that I think are thinly veiled excuses, but there's pressure. There's a lot of pressure. Now, my second question is, why are these same governments very strongly supporting Ukraine, which I think is an important thing to do, strongly supporting Ukraine, strongly speaking out against Russia, strongly showing their support for a democratic and free Ukraine? Why will these same governments not do the same for the Iranian people? Why will they not stand up for the Iranian people and for freedom, democracy, and an end to genocide in Iran? Those are questions that I have. And I think those are questions that all of us, we've come to this conference, we are here not just so we can be in beautiful Paris, but so that we can promote freedom, democracy in whatever institution we are a part of. We need to ask those questions. And I know they're not easy to ask. I know that in some cases I said to Stram earlier today, I might be pushing the envelope a little bit today, and I hope that's all right. We need to. We are in desperate times, my friends. And some of us are slowly being boiled like the frog in the hot water. We are believing lies in our own countries, and we are going along with lies. And then we wonder why in countries like Iran we cannot defeat these regimes. So we have to take that stand, and I know that that's why we're all here. And I know as members of Parliament, regardless of our political stripe, that's why we're here. So that's my experience. I'm not sure if that totally answers your question.
It does.
Well, I as well want to thank the panelists. I learned so much, and it was great to be part of this panel. Steve, something you spoke about as a member of Parliament, and I've talked about my colleagues here, including Tony Clement, who's a former Conservative member of Parliament. I think what we're seeing in Canada as well is immense pressure and disinformation that's given to the bureaucrats and the civil servants who are advising our politicians and our government. In Canada, politicians change, but the civil servants remain the same. I think in the US that's different. The civil servants change with the politicians generally. But some of the biggest pressure that I've received, and I think my colleagues would agree, has actually been from the bureaucrats who would call us in and advise us to not be participants of this conference. So I think we have to be very cognizant. This isn't just a social media campaign or maybe journalists who are not always reporting the truth. There seems to be a pressure, so-called Iranian diplomats have relationships with our civil servants in our countries. And these are many civil servants who are very well-meaning, but they don't really get out of their capitals very often. I know in Ottawa, they don't get out of Ottawa very often, and they don't get to actually meet with the real people on the ground, whereas as politicians, we do, and we have a little more courage and oomph to do these things. The bureaucrats want to play it safe, and I think that they are many times advising our government leaders, just stay away from it. And to your point, Lincoln, that whole narrative around why they don't, well, let's not tick off Iran because they might kidnap somebody, or we don't want to go there again. So again, we have to be strong and vigilant and stand shoulder to shoulder with MEK, with Mrs. Rajabi, with everyone who is working and part of the organization to free Iran. And I think civil servants are a big part of buying into that.
Thank you.